I have been asked as a representative spiritualist to tell you what I believe. A man's convictions are based upon his training plus his experience. I was brought up in the bosom of nonconformity, and in my late teens was seriously troubled by grave doubts concerning matters of religion. It seemed to me that the whole of religion turned upon the question of whether there is or is not an afterlife. If there is no life beyond this, then there may be a case for ethics and morality, but there is none for religion. And accordingly, the existence of a spiritual world forms the preamble of all the great religions. I was then a young man, and young men often make hasty decisions. I came to the conclusion that there was no evidence whatever for a future life. Reliance was placed upon the traditions of the past, but the credibility of these opened the way to very extensive argument. It was at this juncture that I heard of spiritualism. The subject at first aroused in my mind something of incredulity and contempt, and yet the men I knew who were associated with the subject were sane, decent, and reliable businessmen. I listened to what they had to say concerning their experiences at seances, and I came to the conclusion that they had been deluded, and that it only needed me to expose the whole subject. Yet if what they said was true, spiritualism offered the type of evidence that I had found nowhere else. It was in this frame of mind that, accompanied by two relatives, I attended my first seance in February 1892 at Cardiff. The company assembled were of an intelligent, middle-class type, some 16 in number. We sat in a good white light, quite sufficient for reading by, and at that seance a large walnut round table floated in the air without any contact. A relative and I, holding a walking stick between us, completely encircled it as it floated in space. The whole company turned the backs of their chairs to the table and knelt on the seats, so that no feet were underneath the table. They joined hands round, and I assert that that table rose into space and remained suspended for some minutes. Further, it was under intelligent direction. It obeyed our request as to moving in this direction or that, and later, still without any contact, spelt out messages including the name and address, the date of death, etc. of my grandfather, who had died some years before in the west of England. We were told of his age, trade, the maiden name of his wife, etc. I made a complete examination of the room and could detect no mechanism to account for the happening. I was puzzled. The following day, I borrowed the table and had it weighed at the store. It registered 84 pounds. That was my first experience. On returning home that night, one of my relatives and I tried an experiment with a small card table by placing our hands upon its surface. It tilted very freely. I had heard something of unconscious muscular action, so I made an effort to get information which might throw some light on the force directing the table. We laid down a code by asking the table to tilt at each letter of the alphabet, stopping at the one required, and by this cumbersome method, messages were spelt out letter by letter. On that occasion, we received information concerning a relative in London, of whom we had not heard for 5 years. It referred to happenings at that present moment which could not possibly have been known to anyone in Cardiff, and these were subsequently verified up to the hilt. I have neither the time nor inclination at the moment to go into the details of the messages which concern the intimate domestic life of the family. That experience convinced me that there was something which demanded explanation, and I commenced a long course of reading and personal investigation which has lasted 40-odd years, brought me untold happiness, settled all doubts as to there being wisdom and purpose behind all life, and left me without a single shred of doubt as to a future life. I have sat in more than 4,000 seances under all conditions, many of them ridiculous in their simplicity, and many arranged under strict scientific control. Of those seances, considerable fewer than 100 have taken place in the dark. I know that certain forms of psychic phenomena are more easily obtained in the dark, but I have a strong distaste for dark seances, and I always object to sit in the dark with strangers. It is not merely that I am suspicious of mediums. I want to see what the sitters are doing. I have witnessed as much duplicity on the part of sitters as on the part of mediums. Dark seances are, in my opinion, not necessary to conviction, and generally raise more questions than they settle. Under excellent conditions for observation, and in good light, I believe I have seen every phase of psychic phenomena. It would be true to say that quite 50% of these phenomena, whilst interesting, offer little or no evidence of the action of spirits. Probably a further 25% form a borderline. in which one has to choose between the spiritualistic and other theories, telepathy, intuition, subconscious activity, etc. But in my experience, there is a residuum which compels the conviction that the intelligences at work are human beings other than those present in the flesh. In other words, as a result of 40 years' investigation, I am absolutely certain that the so-called dead can communicate with the living. I assert that the evidence I have obtained makes it impossible for me to doubt that I have talked with those who have passed through the gates of death. So strong is that conviction that if I were the only man on earth who believed it, my faith would remain unshaken. I have seen deceased persons clairvoyantly and obtained veridical messages and information which was unknown to anyone present. I have photographed spirit forms under strict test conditions. I have seen, spoken to, and held in my arms materialized forms in lamplight, gaslight, electric light, and daylight. I have clasped their hands and held conversations with them in the presence of witnesses. Hence let me say categorically and emphatically, I know that there is a life beyond this, for I have talked with the people who live in it. Doubtless I shall be expected to say something on the question of fraud. Yes, I have met fraud, but its proportion is certainly not greater than one meets in the ordinary everyday affairs of life. Fraudulent mediumship is generally known to the public because spiritualists take every opportunity to openly and publicly denounce it. In other movements, unsavory incidents are generally suppressed. The spiritualist believes that fraud and duplicity in religion should be ruthlessly exposed. Most of my experience has been gained in what is called a home circle, where no strangers have been present. I have had very few dealings with professional mediums, firstly because I could not afford them, and secondly because I preferred investigation with my own family and personal friends in my own home. I have seen better phenomena in my own home and the homes of intimate friends than I have ever witnessed at professional seances. I do not decry professional mediums, provided the investigator can be assured as to their bona fides. The best way to secure this is to gain the confidence of a responsible spiritualist or a reliable spiritualist association. Many professional mediums are doing excellent and unselfish work. And what are my convictions? Firstly, I am satisfied that man is a spiritual being, that he has come into this world for the purpose of gaining experience and building character. Life here is a sort of trial trip, which will presently enable us to take our places in the real life beyond. This earthly experience is only the prelude to life, and in this sense it is true that we don't really begin living until we are dead. I am satisfied from my talks with the departed that death works no immediate change in character or ability. At death, man passes into another life with the mental and spiritual equipment he has assembled here. No creed has any advantage over any other, save in so far as such creed may have influenced the type of life he lives here. As to the nature of the life which obtains in the next world, I could say much in time permit. I believe with Mr. Gladstone that the study of this subject is the most important work that is being done in the world. There are two things sure for every one of us. First, that we each came into this world, and secondly, that we must all go out of it. Our life here is but a brief span of 70 years, comparatively a mere speck upon the sun of existence. The man who boasts that he is practical because he devotes the whole of his attention to this life is really the most short-sighted of persons, since the number of his days here bears but a fragmentary relationship to his actual life. I am convinced that there is a spiritual world which exists around us like an atmosphere. It is peopled by those who die. Death is not a terminus, it is merely a junction where we change to another life. And at that junction we shall find that 9/10 of the luggage which we have accumulated here is sheer lumber. What then will death mean to me? Well, it will mean the dropping of my physical body. But there are certain things about me which are not physical. My character and personality differentiate me from all other people. These cannot be expressed in terms of physics, mechanics, or chemistry. My habits, the result of experience, are pure. It's all of the by which I am not myself. Nevertheless, technically of all that is very self-informed. I believe that the desire to feel powerful. Spiritual body does not exist. There are constant companions of love, and we build somewhat of a primary view of our physical body or peace from Rice girls, fertile eggs, use breast of the to shelter both the body and chicken. People then build the body, though its action is modified first by its innate the power of fiction. This materials of the same people that work the ethereal. These bodies have a similarity, since the habit expression of an individual. In certain convictions, under the influence of the sin blood, a man can easily find himself floating in space and looking down on his body on the bed. Now, if he is lying on the bed, who is to look around? There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body, says Paul. It is merely the separation of these two. During life, there is reaction between them, which varies with different people. Just as the caterpillar passes into the chrysalis stage and emerges as a butterfly, so shall I presently drop this physical body to inhabit another, giving me a larger range of action and consequently greater freedom. That's all death means to me, and far from looking at it as something to dread, I look forward to it as a most interesting adventure. I am convinced that the most important thing about life is living it, with the recognition that it is continuous. The whole of the testimony of the Spirit people emphasizes one point, namely, that in the other life an individual gets his exact deserts, no more and no less. It may be that in my Father's house are many mansions, but everyone must equip and furnish his own abode, and such equipment depends not upon the creed he has professed, but upon the life he has lived. While it is true that spiritualism does much to confirm and explain the phenomena and beliefs of all ages, in me there has grown up a religious conviction based upon present-day evidences. Spiritualism is my religion, my only religion, and I have not felt the need of any other. It has answered the criticisms of my intellect and satisfied the longings of my heart. In fact, if the whole of the records of the past were destroyed and erased from human memory, though I should be the last to desire such a thing, it could not affect my religious convictions in the slightest degree. And there are thousands of people in this country in the same position. I shall be glad, as far as my time will allow, to help and advise anyone who desires seriously to pursue this investigation. But please do not ask me to recommend mediums. All private fittings with mediums are illegal, and render the medium, however honest, liable to 3 months' hard labor. Under the present law of England, honest mediumship is penalized, while the charlatan and pretender flourish because they are prepared to run risks. The law, too, is not impartially administered. In some cities, people may do as they like. In others, they dare not do very much. Spiritualists are the only religious denomination in this country who are denied religious freedom. I should be the last in the world to decry other faiths. Let every man be persuaded in his own mind. As long as there are different types of mind in the world, there will be different outlooks. I personally accept the principles laid down by the Spiritualist National Union, the representative body of spiritualist churches, of which I was honored to be president for a number of years. These principles may be briefly summarized as follows. Spiritualists accept 1. The fatherhood of God, 2. The brotherhood of man, 3. Continuous existence of the soul, 4. The communion of saints and the ministry of angels, 5. Personal responsibility, 6. Compensation and retribution here or hereafter for all good or evil done on earth, and 7. A path of endless progress open to every human soul. These 7 principles constitute no creed or dogma, since every individual is granted the right of personal interpretation. You may ask why I insist that spiritualism is my religion. Well, the existence of God and the fact of a future life seem to me to be interdependent. The evidence of a future life, its progressive development under more congenial conditions than those of earth, the necessity of developing abilities and characteristics which will be of use to us in that life, the interdependence of all humanity, the necessity for mutual service, and the recognition of a beneficent love as a guiding factor in all life seem to me to embody the essentials of religion, and one cannot be in communication with advanced spirits without getting these convictions. I accept the fatherhood of God because I can only understand the phenomena of nature on the assumption of an all-pervading intelligence behind and within all things, displaying infinite wisdom and beneficent purpose, and operating through unchanging law. Thus I believe that there is only one life in the universe, of which we are each an individualized expression. Hence, when we know ourselves, we shall find that we are all knitted together within the common bond of a benevolent purpose. That is what spiritualism has taught me, and in doing so has changed my whole outlook on life. It implies fatherhood and brotherhood, since all are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul. Spiritualism takes in the brotherhood of man as one of its fundamentals, and thus it becomes a binding obligation and imperative duty to strive for the abolition of all things which hinder the attainment of the fullest and richest life for every man, woman, and child. Unemployment, slums, disease, and ignorance, which hinder or delay the attainment of the full life of mutual service, must be swept away, both in the interests of this world and that of the future states. The two worlds depend upon one another. In conclusion, I believe with Victor Hugo that when I go down to the grave, I can say like many others, I have finished my day's work, but I cannot say I have finished my life. My day will begin again the next morning. The tomb is not a blind alley, but a thoroughfare, and I shall close my eyes upon the twilight, only to open them upon the dawn.